Welcome. Today I am joined by Aaron Patrick to talk all about Excel and when to use it in our property businesses and maybe when to start considering software. Hi, I'm Kimberly Shapcott, qualified chartered accountant, property investor and entrepreneur. Let's sit down and have a chat with Aaron today.
Thanks, Kimberly. So my name is Aaron Patrick. I am the QuickBooks chap on the internet, so I'm here to talk mostly about QuickBooks. But today, I've been dragged out of my normal comfort zone and talk about my other big passion with it, Excel. So Kimberly, what do you want to talk about today?
So today we're really looking at rental income and Excel. Obviously, I, as a property investor, use Excel for one of my properties, mainly because there's just one of them and it's quite easy for me to keep track of things on Excel. However, I've also got some other properties within companies and I tend to do those on QuickBooks because it's a lot easier to use software. So really, the starting point is, why would you use Excel to keep track of your property income? What do you think?
I think the main thing is, yes, there is a potential we're going to be forced into it. So you've done some great videos on making tax digital and how that's going to affect people going forward, and that's going to be something that could become in as a situation where it doesn't matter what you want to do, you're going to be forced down a particular route. But if we take that out of the equation, and we've been given another 12 months anyway, so that issue's kind of sorted itself out to a point, Excel is just that great starting point. And when you think about property, the very thing at the very beginning is all about cost management, isn't it? You know,
understanding what you're spending and what's coming in to make sure you've got everything.
And also you want to be able to be mindful of what costs you're spending money on. So sometimes that extra X amount of pound per month on a piece of software could be make or break a difference between you actually having that property worthwhile or not. When you're first starting in that first property, you said loads of times on your videos how much there are costs that are just coming out of nowhere and that you're not prepared for them or whatever that's going to be. And having this particular way, at least being able to look at it from a cash flow point of view, can make it decide for you if it's worthwhile or not, can't it?
I think it's a lot better than maybe just a sheet of paper because it can do some of the maths for you as well, which is definitely a plus from most people's point of view. Maybe not us, we do quite like maths with being chartered accountants and all. However, I know it's not everybody's forte, is it? No,
and a piece of paper can only go so far, can't it? You know, you may lose that piece of paper. You may end up not being able to distribute that piece of paper. Think how much power or benefit you can get from emailing it over to yourself, for example. If a client asks you to just take a look at this and they send you an Excel spreadsheet, you're more than happy to just spend 5 minutes just checking it over because you know long term down the line, it's going to help you, it's going to be better for the client. So you get that more collaborative nature of it, you get that sort of aspect to it. And at the end of the day, you know, really, if you're in business, you should love Excel.
So I suppose from my point of view, what I like to see in a spreadsheet is we tend to have our income showing, and I tend to suggest showing it on a monthly basis because it really does help show a void. If you've got a month where something hasn't come in, you can keep track of that, which definitely helps keep track, especially over the last year or so where I know we've had a few clients who have had a few gaps in rental payments and then have the expenses together, which would you be thinking monthly or just a list? How do you feel that they're best shown on something like Excel?
Well, I know you've got that wonderful template that you're looking to share with people, and I think that's a great starting point. But if you don't have access to that template or you're looking to make your own, I think you're right. I think monthly is the way to go. And your first point of call, your first concentration should be on that income side of things. And especially in the world of rental, and I'm sure you tell them all the time, you know, the money you receive in the bank doesn't necessarily relate to what your actual income is going to be in that period. If you've got a third party looking after your business, or you know, if there's a fee involved, whatever the criteria is going to be, your first point of call, I would say, is to look at that income side of things. Get them into that monthly columns, because the best thing about monthly columns is straight away you can point out if you're missing something or if something's not there. So get it into that monthly columns and then start thinking about, right, I've received X, what does that actually mean, and work backwards from there.
And I think from what you've been saying, it's all on one sheet rather than having lots of tabs per month, because then it's easier to see an overview of the whole thing rather than having to click through on lots of tabs, which on Excel, I know I use tabs on many spreadsheets, but for a property, you kind of want to see the whole picture in one place, don't you?
Yeah, I like to see tabs as more of an advanced user to be utilising them, because tabs are really, really, really powerful. The idea, like you said there, you could have different months or different properties, or whatever segmentation you've got to your data can be really, really powerful. But at the same time, if you're not au fait with Excel, that's normally where the most amount of mistakes can be made. You know, you're updating May and you should be in June, or whatever the criteria is going to be. And you could end up making that data not accurate. And when we're talking about your taxes and we're talking about the difference between if a property is going to be worthwhile investing in or carrying on or selling, getting that data right is so important, isn't it?
Oh, completely. And that probably is a great lead on with making mistakes in Excel. That is probably one of the things we probably see on a regular basis as we do see things coming in from clients, because they've not got the formulas updated, or they've got a formula in but it's not covered enough rows and they've gone past it. So definitely have a look at the template that's available, because that should hopefully help make sure that you're not missing things out in the formulas, which is probably one of the biggest errors we see on Excel, isn't it? They've got the data there, but not always necessarily included it in the totals.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there, Kimberly. And error prevention is going to be make or break to how much you're going to be able to rely on the data that's in there. And really quick examples that I can show you here that's going to make your life easier. So the whole point of Excel, or the whole benefit of it, is it's going to add items for you. So imagine I did have January all the way to February, and I can just drag this along, so it's going to quickly make these for me. And imagine that I did, you know, have my little columns on here, and I'd income up here, and I'd my expenses there, and I'm splitting these down. So it could be anything. It could be, you know, you've got some insurance to deal with, or whatever it's going to be. You can have travel, the cost it's going to be. And the thing that you want to be utilising is the ability for you to actually use the equals and start using sum, because sum is the first formula that you just want to get your head around.
That's the one we all learned. I say all learned in school. That's the ones we learned in school. Whether everyone, that's a different question.
And with sum, that just gives you the ability to open up and say, well, what criteria do you want to put it in? And the biggest danger people do is they'll have this wonderful sum section here, and I know you could have £100 there and £200 there, and you're happily then going through putting the items in. But the error correction, the thing you've just got to remember is, well, if you're adding extra lines in here, how's that going to affect your sum figure? And you want to be able to put as much in as possible in terms of being able to prevent these errors. Because if I was then to copy this information here, and I then was carrying on putting 150 in here and 120 in here, whatever the figures are going to be, and it's happily adding them there, if I put anything below or above that line, they won't be including the sum. So my big tip is just add in between two areas, and that's going to give you the opportunity to add it in there. It's little things like that, little error elements like that can make or break, because if you've got numbers below that line that's not including that sum, you won't be thinking about them in terms of your numbers.
Completely. As you expand your property portfolio from one property to maybe 2, 3 properties, this is where I'd probably start looking at using tabs. So this is where we have a tab per property, and maybe even an extra tab which is overall expenses, which you might be getting group insurance for all your properties rather than insurance per property. You've potentially got accountancy fees, maybe travel and different things which aren't necessarily property specific that you may be able to claim. So on this, I'd have like a global tab, which covers just expenses for that tax year, and then a tab per property. Is there any other things you think that might be useful for our viewers today?
Yeah, so again, your template I think is going to be brilliant in terms of getting their mindset into how those tabs can work. And I think you're right, the property one is the one that I would definitely aim for. But if you are creating your own tab, don't be afraid just to use the duplicate option down the bottom, because what that means is you can go in and set this one up fully for that one tab, like make it so that you've got all of your income and expenditure options you want in there, and then duplicate it along. And all I'm doing is I'm now creating a copy, creating that second one that's there, and then I can have property A and I can have property B. And then that gives me a real quick and easy way to start building them and bringing them forward. The other uses of tabs could be, you could have it for multiple tax years. People do that a lot. My danger of that, again, is about error corrections and error issues. So many times I've seen someone accidentally be in the wrong tab when they want to go through there. So honestly, like, please use a different Excel spreadsheet. It's by far the best way, isn't it, to keep everything up to date and everything tidy.
Yeah, because I think that kind of, from a tax year, if you've got multiple properties, you have one Excel or Google Sheets or Numbers, they all pretty much have a similar functionality to a general spreadsheet approach. But then you can have one per tax year with your global expenses, property 1, property 2. And if you really want to get slightly more technical, you can actually have a summary page on that spreadsheet as well, which just collates all that information for you. You just really have to be careful with the formulae to make sure that you're picking up the right cells to make sure it gives you the right data. But again, if you're careful with all of that, it can be a great use to give you that information, that data, to understand what your portfolio is doing.
Another advanced thing I'd like to kind of tell the audience as well is about, if you're using Excel, Google Sheets, Numbers, whatever you're going to use, and you save it into the cloud, that opens up a whole raft of opportunities for you to have that while you're out and about. So we always talk about how QuickBooks Online, Xero, doesn't matter what software, the benefit is you get your mobile phone out or your mobile device out, and you get there and you're able to utilize that data while on the go. Well, with this, even just with Excel, Numbers, Google Sheets, whatever you're using, you're going to have that functionality. So you're going to be able to take that on the go, amend it, keep it up to date. And what I find that really useful is you'll get that email ping through on the 1st of each year, 1st of each month, and it'll be, here's your property statement if you've got, third party. And it's so quick and easy just to go, right, let's jump into that file, update it, it's done then, isn't it?
That's all I do, completely agree. As is on Google Drive, just literally can jump in whenever we need to. So it's definitely a real plus to use some of these online platforms. Appreciate not everyone's using them just yet, but with the accessibility these days and the lack of cost, should I say, it does make it an easy option to help you manage and run your property business. I suppose that covers a lot of the advanced sort of things that we probably wanted to cover today, doesn't it, Aaron? So I suppose that leads us on to the final question for us, which, when's the right time to move away from Excel or Google Sheets or Numbers? Because you can't do all of this on a spreadsheet forever, because it just gets very, very complicated and very, very, probably quite techy really with coding. And unless you're a coder, maybe not going to give you all the information that you're wanting. So what's your opinion on that side of things?
It's a great question. And I think a lot of it's going to be down to the fact that, we've already touched on at the beginning, at some point you may be forced to. So we're going to say the word again, making tax digital. We're just going to keep drumming it and drumming it and drumming it.
And something will be coming up very shortly on where things are. So keep an eye on the channel, because as more gets released on what is happening, there'll be new videos to keep everyone up to date, especially for landlords, based on the channel being all about property tax.
Exactly, and we'll keep drumming it home, but at some point, unfortunately, majority of you out there listening will be forced onto some form of software. So that's going to be the first criteria. Is if you're forced, then there's no chance you've got to get it done. That's the end of story. The other criteria, though, I think, is, you kind of alluded to there, it's about when it starts getting too complicated. And also you've got to think about your time as well. Like, if it is just a case that it's going to take you 2-3 minutes a month to keep this all update, then you're probably on the right platform, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely.
As soon as you start having multiple properties, or even if you've got a property where there's multiple transactions going in, if you've got a multi-use property,
got a HMO, then definitely you're starting to have maybe 4, 5, 6 rents coming in, and then you've got all the bills going out, and then you might get a second HMO, so it's not 5, 4, 5, 6, it's now 10, 11, 12, plus you've got all the utilities and everything from 2 properties. You're looking about maybe 30, 40, 50 transactions a month potentially. And
yes, you can, be a little bit savvy and maybe download your Excel, your bank account details and put it into Excel. And you could be, if you're that minded, you could be able to generate something that relates to that. But again, the time it takes you to develop that, the time it takes you to maintain it, it's probably from a time point of view worthwhile to move on to software. And when you do make that jump for software, you won't just find that it'll be quicker, because the simplest way of looking at it is the fact you connect your bank account to the software.
That's the key
so
one.
Much time, yeah, so much time. But you can start thinking about other automations as well. So you were saying there about having your HMOs and having multiple people need to pay you. Well, you could set it up in QuickBooks that they get a reminder to make those payments automatically. They may get a reminder if they haven't paid on time. You can have those automations in place so that you're kind of taking away that administration away from yourself, that burden.
The other side of things with that, with a lot of the software, there is actual connections with other property management software. So things like Arthur and things like, I think there's another one called Property something.
Yeah.
So there's quite a few of these different ones. So you need to look at the cost of those, because some of them are, I will say, quite costly. But there's quite a few that interact with things like Xero, with QuickBooks, that actually you update your property maintenance management software, and it also does your bookkeeping for you as well. So that's a real positive, because now you're updating one system which is doing all of it, and you're not just sitting with an Excel thinking, this is getting a bit complicated.
Yeah, and the other things that you're going to gain from moving over to software is, if your business, your property development empire, if your business itself starts needing to make those big decisions and start needing to think about it, because now the software includes cash flow forecasting and automatic forecasting as well. So you can start to see what's going on. It's going to make you make those decisions later. And my final bit for me, I would say, is if your Excel spreadsheet and you're not confident or comfortable, you're getting all of your expenses in there, that's again where the software is getting better and better. The software itself is designed to prompt you, designed to help you to make sure that all the expenses that are relevant are being accounted for. Mileage, for example, and making sure that all the costs going through your bank are being allocated correctly. You could find that the cost costs you to have this software can be in year one easily found and easily pays for itself, because you're actually accounting for all your different expenditure out there.
And it could be helping cut your tax bill based on that. So you might be saving a little bit of money on your tax bill, which covers off the software at times as well.
Yeah.
So I'd probably be starting to look at it from maybe 2-3 properties. That's kind of the level. I do one property on Excel. It takes me 2 minutes a month. So there's no reason for me to be putting that on anything more complicated than that. However, with some of my HMOs, which I've got a number, those are getting a bit more complicated, and I definitely have them on software just because it's so much easier to manage that. The key thing I think we've mentioned today is also that it's useful to have everything in one specific property related bank account, because then when you do start looking at it, whether it be on your spreadsheet or whether it be in your software, it's easy to keep track of what is being spent and what isn't being spent. And I think that's probably something worth noting, to just say, if you're not set up like that, definitely get yourself set up like that. It will make it a lot easier now and in the future. And also the taxman can only then look at that bank account rather than ask for every bank account that you have got.
Yeah, and within the more challenger banks that are out there now, so if you're looking at Revolut, Starling, those sort of things, obviously I'm going to be a big advocate for QuickBooks being the software to use, but a lot of them now are creating their own software, or at least they have that bookkeeping-esqueness to them built directly in the app itself. So for some clients, that's all they'll ever need. And also depending on what software, what bank you're with, some of them provide free software. So if you're in NatWest, for example, they give you free agent. You've got, or Metal gives you free agent as well. So there's lots of options out there. And I think, you hit absolute spot on there about having that separate bank account. But for me, just do some research on what bank accounts are on there. Find one that's going to work for you. And you might find that all that we're talking about here about Excel is irrelevant, because the bank account itself will do most of that work for you.
I suppose the only lead on from there is a good lead in to, you've just got to make sure it's MTD compliant, because Making Tax Digital is coming, and we will definitely be having to do something, whether it be Excel or a spreadsheet, whether it be software or whether it be something through your accountant. There's definitely going to be changes in the next couple of years. Hopefully, if you're set up right now, then it won't be particularly anything big. it will just be a small change and maybe a few more filings in a year, and a few other things that probably will be happening when we find out more from the government over the next couple of years. Hopefully today you've got a really good idea of how Excel or a spreadsheet could work for you and your property business. And hopefully you've figured out when might be a good time to be looking at an alternative option as well. Please like this video and share with your friends and family and any business contacts who might find it useful. Check out the description and links below and find the template that is available free for you to help get you started on Excel. Let's make tax less taxing.